Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the final in our knowledge series for the year. My name is Stephen Richardson. I'm the State Manager for Victoria and Tasmania for Creative Partnerships Australia. As I said, this is the last knowledge series that we're doing for the year, but please keep an eye out on our website for next year's round of knowledge series. I'm sure they'll be really, really fabulous. A little bit of housekeeping before we get going today. And before we commence, of course, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, and we pay our respects to elders past and present. Please remain on mute with your cameras off during the session. If you don't mind, that would be great. That helps us just focus on the material, would be really terrific. There, of course, will be a Q&A at the end of the session. If you have questions that come up during the session, please put them in the chat function or hold them till the end of the session. And I can pass them on and sort of curate those questions to the presenter at the end. Any technical issues you might have, please message Lisa or Matt at our office, and they will get you back online as soon as possible. We are recording today's session, and a copy will be emailed to you in a week's time. And without any further ado, I would like to introduce Jo Brayo. Jo is I've lifted Jo's biog from her website, and it says here that Jo is a confident leader and accomplished advocate for audiences, insight, and organisational development. Driven by a sincere desire to help organisations build understanding about their audiences and ensure insight into embedded strategy, Jo has more than 20 years' experience across New Zealand, Australia, and UK cultural markets, spending much of her career in senior client roles in Sydney's Powerhouse Museum, Auckland Museum, and the London Science Museum. Jo has a deep understanding of the unique challenges faced in the sector and a vast amount of experience overcoming these issues. As Australasian Director for MHM, Jo leads innovative projects across the territory, providing transformative insights and expert strategic advice to ensure client sustainability and growth. Jo has ultimate responsibility of all accounts and client responsibilities in the region. Jo, that is a big bio to live up to.
I was just listening and thinking the exact same thing. Goodness me. I sound good on paper, don't I?
You know, when people say there's no pressure, well, I'm sorry, there's a lot of pressure today to live up to that. Without any further ado, Jo, over to you.
Thanks so much. Thank you. And yes, please let me know after this if you feel I need to tone down the blurb on the website. Great to see, I'm not seeing faces, but great to see some names popping up that I am familiar with. And I did see the list prior of those that had registered prior to joining today. So yeah, great to see lots of old friends and clients joining. So good to have you here, and others that I haven't met before, welcome from me as well. And thanks for joining, and I hope this is going to be an insightful session for everyone. So getting into today's session, we are Morris Hargreaves McIntyre. That's the organisation I am here today representing. And yeah, we're an international consultancy, main office in Manchester in the UK. That's where we were born, and we have smaller offices in Australia, New Zealand, and the US. But we actually work with clients across around 15 countries around the world, and we specialise in arts, heritage, cultural organisations of all sizes, actually. And we're a strategic consultancy, but our work's a bit different from many, in that we sort of the foundation of a lot of our work really is insight and audience and market development to kind of provide that real evidence base to support our clients and the sector more broadly to thrive and grow across all areas of their operation. One of the key tools we use in our work with the sector is culture segments, a powerful sort of sector-specific segmentation system that MHM actually developed. And I know many of you here today have some experience. Some of you from the list I saw have quite a lot of experience with culture segments. It's been around and well used in the sector in Australia for many years. But it's probably better known as a tool to drive engagement with the core cultural offer, rather than in sort of the fundraising space, if you like. And more often than not, this is just because marketers in our cultural organisations have tended to have a broader understanding of and comfort with segmentation. So it's been embraced in this space more readily, but it wasn't designed as a marketing tool for the cultural offer. It was designed as a whole of organisation framework for relationship development and can be used to shape your program of fundraising activity and your communications around this, in the same way that it's used to shape the core cultural offer and communications of this by many of you already. So it's also a great tool for shaping and communications around membership programs, which MHM and I certainly, and I'm sure many of you will too, see as intertwined with fundraising. So we'll focus on both those things a wee bit today. So getting underway, and for some of you, the recap of segmentation and culture segments will be something that you've heard me or others within MHM do before, or take everyone through before. But I think it's really good to talk a bit about the sort of what segmentation is and sort of why it works, so that we have this solid understanding of where we're coming from and what culture segments is grounded in. Your culture segments is a way of understanding and therefore responding to people's deep-seated values in relation to arts and culture, or put another way, what people are seeking to fulfill in themselves through their engagement with you. And just as people are seeking to fulfill deep-seated needs when they attend a performance or visit an exhibition, those values are just as present in their decision-making about their support for an organisation and its cause. So before we dive into culture segments and ways that it can be applied, as I said, I'm going to first start talking about segmentation more generally and why it's needed. And quite simply, segmentation is needed because we can't treat the market as a single homogenous mass. But equally, it's often not possible for us to tailor our approach, most often not possible for us to tailor our approach, in fact, at an individual level. So, segmentation is a happy medium between these two things. It's a compromise, and I think it's good to think about it as a compromise. While demographics and other ways of looking at your market certainly have their place, psychographic segmentation is critical, because this is what gets to the heart of what is motivating your market. Effective segmentation is really about clustering or creating clusters or groups with distinct shared needs. And MHM and I personally have been working in the arts for 20 years and seen how the sector's really grappled with segmentation. In the beginning, there's this sort of simple demographics, so age and gender and life stage and education and income, which of course is important in this space. But this doesn't tell us, it tells us a little about a person, but actually not a lot. And I often use this slide that some of you will have seen it before in presentations. It's borrowed from Trend Watch, and I think it illustrates perfectly how problematic it can be to develop strategies based solely on demographics. It says if you look at the list of 1,000 artists for 60-year-olds and 1,000 favourite artists for 13-year-olds, there's a 40% overlap. So this sort of assumption that, age, for example, can tell you what somebody's behaviour is going to be, it doesn't always ring true, or often ring true. And after demographics, of course, past behaviour has been used. So segmenting people based on how they behaved in the past and targeting people for similar things that they've done before. And past behaviour hasn't always shown itself to be a good indicator of future behaviour, though. And just because somebody hasn't donated in the past certainly doesn't mean that they won't do it in the future. Geography has become popular, and this is often, utilised by organisations that have have the sort of databases that they can do this, and it's sort of been helped by technology, being able to target people who live near each other, perhaps they have a similar income, so why wouldn't they want to spend this in the same way? And this is the sort of thinking behind that type of segmentation, and this has kind of evolved and had things added to it, sort of adding in socioeconomic profiling and lifestyles, which again has got us closer, but not really to where we needed to be. We added attitudinal data in the mix, so again, sort of inching us closer, but not really getting to the fundamentals of what's motivating the audience until we got to a values-based segmentation, a real psychographic segmentation, which of course is what our culture segments is based on. Essentially, we mastered an effective way to cluster the market around their deep-seated beliefs and values towards arts and culture. So really understanding what's in those hearts and minds to help us win them. And, in addition to kind of understanding that sort of the different types of segmentation and the evolution of it, it's important to understand why kind of tapping into your market's values is actually important. Well, if you start at the top of the hierarchy of the mind, purpose is the way in which we see ourselves. Our deep psyche or identity informs how we see ourselves in the world, and that in turn informs our values. Values manifest themselves as attitudes, what we think about certain things, and these opinions inform our behaviour, so what we do and what we engage with. Our behaviour, of course, comes out in language, how we articulate ourselves, but our purpose, identity and values are far more fundamental to who we are. Everything else is far more superficial and can change according to the context. So if we can understand the things that are motivating people at their very core, we will gain a far more accurate and stable understanding of how to speak to them, to target them, and how to shape their behaviour. So into culture segments then. Some of you would have already segmented yourself before, but if you haven't, there's the link here now to do it. And I think people will be sick of me saying this to them, those that I know in the room. I cannot stress enough how important it is that you know your own segment. Now, it's a quick few questions to answer. So you might even want to put your segment in the chat, let others know what segment you are. Yeah, it's really important to be an effective culture segment practitioner, to know your segment. You need to know your own biases that you're bringing to the decision making in your jobs, and this isn't a bad thing. This, you have biases. I'm not being critical here. We all have them. We're all human. We are all making decisions through our own eyes and applying the things that we value to these decisions. But these may not be the same as our market's values, or the same as the values of the particular segment of the market that we're trying to target. So do that now. It's also quite fun to have a bit of skin in the game as well as we go through the segments, to be able to see which aspects of those cluster kind of traits you identify with or don't, because, you know, we talk in sort of in averages, and it might not be everything there, but also quite fun to see. You know, we often have people sort of smiling or laughing as we're going through the segments. Oh yes, that's very me. There are 8 culture segment clusters, all centering around a shared sort of set of shared values. So the things that those people are seeking to fulfill through their engagement with arts and culture. And I'll introduce them all to you quickly, but we will focus mainly on the top line, because these are the most culturally active. They dominate the Australian culture market. And very importantly, given today's focus, they also have the highest propensity to give and join. And here's what I mean. This is the culture segment profile of the Australian culture market from the last nationwide audience atlas. And just to say, you know, I know some of you that are in Victoria, you'll have the Victorian audience atlas. There are other profiles, might not be exactly the same, but the pattern is similar, with those 4 key segments always sizable. And in this sort of broad Australian culture market profile, we have 10% of essence in the purple, 26% expression in the yellow, 14% stimulation in the orange, and 20% affirmation in that maroon colour. So that's 70% of the market in these 4 segments. And perhaps even more important than their volume in the market is this graph, which shows the frequency with which the segments donate to the arts in Australia. And again, it's the same for essence, expression, stimulation, and affirmation that we really need to be paying attention to. Expression, again, if you know anything about culture segments, it'll be no surprise to you that expression take out the top spot. I often say, full disclaimer, on my segment, I'm stimulation, and I often say that expression is the segment I aspire to be. Expression take out the top spot, 19% regularly donating to the arts, and a further 59% occasionally doing so. Essence are very close to this, with fewer regularly donating, but still high on 13% and 66% reporting occasional donation. And there's also very respectable giving behaviour amongst stimulation and affirmation as well. So good to have those in the mix too. And as mentioned, you know, MHM very much see membership as intertwined with fundraising. So it's also important to highlight the membership behaviour for these segments as well. And again, from the last nationwide audience atlas, it was 62% of essence in the culture market having an active membership, 56% of expression, 48% of stimulation, and 50% of affirmation. So all really decent prospects to be building relationships with. I'm going to do a quick sort of top line run through of them generally, and then sort of talk more specifically about them in that sort of fundraising membership space with some examples. But I do want to talk quickly through all of them. So essence and the percentages that I show here are again just reminding us of their volume across nationwide volume and class audience atlas. So essence consider arts and culture essential to their very being. They are the one segment for whom this isn't just something they do, it's who they are. They are highly active cultural consumers, very much leaders in the cultural space rather than followers. And if I had to pick the number one thing that there is their primary concern, it is quality. And they veer away from the sort of more mainstream arts and cultural activities and propositions. This is, they think that's a bit unsophisticated. Expression are the people. Called expression because they most value the active expression in arts and the arts and culture they engage with, and they're often creatively expressive people themselves. Expression are open to, open and full of enthusiasm with varied and eclectic tastes. They like to be part of the scene, to belong and be part of something bigger than themselves, and want to be able to connect with and share experiences with others. They're the most altruistic segment, and they put a high price on inclusivity. Stimulation are an active group who love adventure and live for the moment. They seek out new experiences and live a varied life, but really what they're wanting to do at all times is keep ahead of the curve, be first, and have those sort of new and exciting experiences. They are all about big ideas, though. I often say with stimulation, actually, they sound a little bit superficial, but they're not. They like a party, but they actually like big ideas as well. So it can't be sort of superficial content. They like to be surprised and amazed, and basically like a spectacle. And affirmation view arts and culture as a means of sort of developing themselves as individuals, something they should do. They believe that arts will make their lives better. It's a commitment to personal well-being that should be prioritised. They also like to be seen to be doing the right thing. Nothing happens by accident for affirmation. They're very careful decision makers. And to make these choices, they need to be well equipped with all the information, all the evidence that this should be the thing they commit to. I'm just running through the bottom four a bit more quickly. As I said, we're not going to spend time today focusing on the next four segments, but it wouldn't be fair not to mention them, not to round out the whole framework. So enrichment tend to see the present through the lens of the past. They have established, probably you'd say more traditional tastes, and certainly like the familiar. They're not really open. They're almost the opposite to stimulation in some ways. The stimulation want that new and different and the surprise and the spectacle. Enrichment don't. They just want the same sorts of things, something that they know. Perspective are quite a self-fulfilled segment, really happy doing their own thing, driven by their own agendas. Perspective often have one particular hobby that they are particularly into. And so, sort of focused on one thing or certainly a limited number of interests that they find satisfying and rewarding, and really have a low appetite for expanding this repertoire. Release, interesting, they almost always think they're too busy for arts and culture. They might choose sort of one sure thing to engage with a year. And when they do engage, they're sort of looking for escape. They like to see it as a means of sort of blowing off steam and escaping from the mundaneness of everyday life kind of thing. And finally, entertainment. They're very conventional in their tastes with, arts and culture is really on the periphery of their lives. You might remember the graph I shared a moment ago. They have very limited giving behaviour with 71%, I think it was, never having donated before. So certainly not a segment to target or even really, pay attention to in terms of the fundraising space. And, so what can we do with this knowledge about segments and segment behaviour in the fundraising space? Well, you can shape your program of activity and communications around this knowledge, whether it's relationship building through membership or more specific fundraising initiatives. You can use the knowledge about what matters to the segments to, to shape that program, to shape those comms. So a bit more focused on membership and fundraising then, and going through each of the segments. Why do Essence join? Well, Essence join to get closer to the art. You'll remember art's their lifeblood. So they're joining to get close to it. And although they're highly active cultural consumers, Essence aren't natural joiners. They're not wanting to build a relationship with you and belong or be part of an organisation. They do it if it enables them to get closer to the art, to get closer to your creatives, to get closer to your experts and the things that enable them to engage more deeply. So yes, Essence might pay for a membership program if it gives them exclusive access to the best seats or an exhibition preview tour with the director, or be willing to pay handsomely for a fancy dinner. But don't be fooled, it's not for the sake of it. It's only if it's getting them closer to the art form, giving them exclusive access or insider information. I'm going to run through some sort of examples of Essence aligned campaigns. Here's a membership brochure from the Royal Northern College of Music in the UK. The aesthetic is very Essence, highly stylized and sophisticated, and oozes the all-important quality with the gold embossing to indicate excellence. The fingerprint's a great move for Essence because it indicates it's all about them. This is it's about the individual rather than the collective of the membership, which is not going to be of interest to them at all. Another Essence targeted membership campaign, this from the Barbican in London. And remember this one because I'm going to come back to this or reference this again shortly. It's calling Essence Trailblazers. Flattery will get you everywhere with Essence. And it presents a very sort of professional looking image. This guy knows quality. It's focused on one individual. You are the priority. It's not showing an audience of people in an event. And because promoting that social aspect of membership, it's not important to Essence, so why would you? The call to action is be in the know, perfect for Essence. That's what they're wanting, and highlights special events that bring you closer to the program. Again, this closeness to the art form is what Essence is seeking. So more specifically now, looking at why Essence give. Essence give for personal reasons. Essence are active in their monetary support of cultural organisations, especially at that higher level. We saw that they give less regularly than Expression, but we know that they tend to give it a higher amount. They are often overrepresented in those big donations. And although all demographics exist across all segments, and none of the segment clusters are defined demographically, Essence do tend to skew older, more highly educated and affluent. Essence are motivated to give because the arts are essential to them, remember. They believe in its value. And while they want to ensure and nurture the development of exceptional art in society, it's actually quite an inwardly focused motivation. They're doing this because it's their lifeblood. They need it. They're looking to support organisations that develop deep personal outcomes, that deliver deep personal outcomes and with whom they have a deep connection. And of course, I love this, only organisations that they see as worthy of their support, those developing exceptional art and delivering peak experiences will have them part with their money. So some kind of examples that we have of Essence aligned asks, this one from the Donmouth Theatre in London. Your support sustains their quality and also gets you access to things before others. This too from the Pittsburgh Opera, also Essence aligned. It reads, by supporting Pittsburgh Opera, You play a critical role in our region's cultural vitality and growth. A nice bit of flattery there, as well as a focus on the importance of the art. You enrich our city, making Pittsburgh a beacon for world-class opera, ensuring the highest level of artistic excellence. You foster rising talent, building opera stars of the future through the resident artist program, ranked in the top 5 training programs nationally. So again, here highlighting how the support continues to develop new artistic talent and not just any artists, high quality artists with a top 5 ranking training program there as well. Very Essence. This one is also good for Essence. Again, quite flattering of them. You're donating to affirm your belief in the transformative power of the arts. We're telling them we see them and what's important to them. It's also bringing it back to the art and quality art. This is about a commitment to artistic innovation. Excuse me, just having a drink. This one from the New Zealand Dance Company. It's a very Essence campaign where your donation goes to the direct support of the artist. With Essence, who want to be as close as they can to the art. This is perfect. It's a deep personal link between them and the art form. They're told they are contributing to a world-class dance, sustaining artistic legacy. But there are also transactional benefits to appeal to, particularly the special behind-the-scenes invitation to studio showings. Again, getting them closer. So summarising then how to go about an ask for Essence. It's about showing a direct link to the art form. Essence are discerning and aren't sold by marketing. So making it feel like a personal invite is important for them. If it comes from your director or one of your chief creatives or experts, then even better. Emphasize the importance of quality or niche programming and flatter them and their knowledge. They understand how things work here. Also, don't forget about those transactional benefits as well. You can offer them opportunities again to get closer, to explore the artistic process or have some sort of relationship or encounter at least with those creatives. Okay, so moving on to Expression. Expression love to join, and they primarily do this to be part of a community. So to be part of something bigger than themselves, to belong. They want to be part of a club, but it's important to them that this isn't an exclusive club. It's not about, I'm part of it. We often think about club joining as somehow connected to some exclusivity, but not. It's not. They want anyone to be welcome, and that's really key. They might be connecting with others around a particular art form, but it's actually about the community and the shared experience of art with other like-minded individuals that sort of takes centre stage for Expression. And while belonging is important, Expression aren't known to be passive bystanders either. So by joining something, they're often also looking to participate. So opportunities to do this are important for them. So you'll remember the membership campaign, and I asked you to remember it, that I just shared from the Barbican for Essence. Well, this one is for Expression. So it's the same membership program, just positioned in a different way and highlighting different aspects of the offer to appeal to a different segment's values. So Expression respond really well to this sort of warmth. It's saying membership for lovers. It goes on, share the love, bring a guest into the gallery, and a whole lot more. So a very kind of, it's very simple, but it's very different, and especially when you think about that trailblazers with the one figure there, you can see how different these two approaches are. This from the Royal Court Theatre in London, a promotion of their Friends membership. Royal Court Friends are part of the fabric of the Royal Court. Definitely giving a sense of being part of something. It continues. They are regulars, usually found hanging out in the bar, pursuing the bookshop, or perusing the bookshop. And read off the slide, or chatting on the front steps, discussing the play they've just seen. This is something you're doing with others and able to engage in a myriad of ways. There's something for everyone. It finishes with the clincher. Our friends are an ever-growing community. Join today and be part of something special. It's absolutely perfect for expression. And thinking more specifically about giving, thinking about why expression give. Well, they're the most altruistic segment. They want to give something back. They are drawn to organisations that authentically demonstrate alignment with their values. So accessibility, inclusion, diversity, they want their support to make a direct impact. They prefer to support smaller, local, less recognised organisations. So if that's not you, you'll need to work harder to convince expression of the good work that you're doing, and of the good work you'll do with their money, ideally locally and with kind of underprivileged, the underprivileged in the community. And remember, community is everything to expression. So giving to feel part of something is important. Even better if the giving opportunity is linked with an opportunity to participate in some way as well. And again, just running through some examples. This ask from the Getty, which has pretty simple text, not overtly expression, but coupled with an image of ethnically diverse youngsters in the gallery, it really speaks to those expression values. An additional FYI on expression, they love seeing people in campaigns, in marketing. So this is something we always encourage for expression targeted campaigns in terms of the imagery used. This from the Steppenwolf Theatre Company in Chicago. Very well aligned expression ask. Expression want nothing more than to belong to an organisation, and the theatre company talks about its donors as family. They highlight that the donation will help them discover new ways of storytelling and community. Very aligned with expression values. They highlight young adult productions that the donation supports, aligning with expression's desire to champion the sort of up and coming. And it taps into expression's all-important desire for organisations they support to have a social conscience. Their donation will help to make a more diverse and equitable theatre community. And how's this for an expression-aligned ask from BAM, from Brooklyn Academy of Music in New York? Rediscover collective joy through human connection and shared experiences. I mean, we often laugh about expression. They love sort of emotive and emotional language, but so that hits the mark there. While supporting a diverse group of local and international artists, our neighbourhood and our great city. The magic of BAM is back for everyone. It's ticking so many boxes. The emotive language, focusing on collective experience of enjoyment of art, that the support benefits diversity in the local artists of the specific place. It continues, make BAM possible for everyone. Your gift makes an immediate cultural impact close to home while supporting art and artists from around the globe. And even the thank you reminds them that they are part of something by donating. And finally, for expression, I just wanted to highlight a very specific expression giving campaign developed by 92Y Community and Cultural Centre in New York. This was to celebrate their 140th birthday. 92Y created Giving Tuesday, a major fundraising campaign specifically targeting expression. Visitors were, as part of the sort of the creation of the campaign, visitors were asked to share their stories and feelings about the centre, and then these real people and their stories became central to the campaign. It focused on the sense of community and also utilised a very powerful "powered by 92Y and you" tagline, which was just great and sort of right on point for expression. Potential donors were targeted by email and across social media platform, and results for this campaign, really surpassed the expectations that they had for it. So to summarise on how to ask expression, it's about remembering, it's about community. So using words like join and be part of resonate with that collective spirit. Lean into your own altruistic values and don't be afraid to highlight the good, perhaps otherwise unseen work that you're doing, education and community outreach initiatives, and how you are being inclusive, whether that's, how you're being more accessible, or your sustainability efforts, or even, your commitment to change. Speak to them like a friend and appeal to them in ways that encourage them to make a difference. So on to stimulation and why they join. Well, firstly, like Essence, they're not natural joiners. They're not traditionally loyal to any one particular organisation, because they like to keep themselves open for the next big thing that's going to come along. But they won't be able to ignore you if what you're offering, aligns with their personal brand. So those kind of innovative, cool, unusual things that stimulation think about themselves. If it's going to get them exclusive access, enable them to be the first to do something. And also if it looks like fun. As I said, they're looking at stimulation, are looking for a good time and a bit of a spectacle. But remember, not frivolity. It has to be intellectually challenging and emotionally stimulating as well. So, some examples of stimulation approaches. And again, another one from the Barbican, same membership program, targeted this time for stimulation. We've had the gentleman sitting for Essence, we had the couple for expression, and we've got this one for stimulation. So, great to think about being able to do that for the different segments. Membership for adventurers, dare to try something new, it reads, and it's positioned as their passport for adventure. And coupled with this rather cool, gritty image, it's really stimulation perfection. Here's a proposition from the South Bank Centre in London, also ticking a whole pile of stimulation boxes. Good times and gobsmackers, but also things that really matter. If you get membership, you're not going to miss out on the best things happening in London on these nights. Now, South Bank is the place to be, but you've got to be a member to get in first. I love that they actually use the term FOMO. FOMO is essentially stimulation's worst nightmare. And I really like this one for stimulation, and I hope you take this as inspiration for your organisations, because it's from an organisation you might not expect to be targeting stimulation. It's from Westminster Abbey. You'd assume that stimulation might think of it as a bit of an old crusty building for tourists, and they did. We did research with them, and that is what people thought. But there was also we found an opportunity to sort of think about it in a slightly different way and show a different side, and that was going to appeal to stimulation. So, really, they created this campaign that played on stimulation's desire to sort of uncover secrets and discover things for themselves. That's a really important thing for stimulation. We often say, don't give too much away when you're targeting stimulation. They want it to be a surprise, to uncover things for themselves. And again, it was a really successful campaign for them. So on to donating again, more specifically for this segment. As we've said, stimulation aren't naturally loyal, so they don't always show up as regular donors. But if you understand what they value, you'll know how and when you can target them. Stimulation they like to align themselves with organisations that fit with their personal brand. So if you're lucky enough to be cool and cutting edge, if you're that type of organisation, it's likely stimulation will want to align themselves with you. They can be quite self-conscious, quite self-conscious as a cluster, and they like to show to support. To be able to show others what they're supporting, kind of a status thing for them. So it's better if there's a way somehow for them to be associated or showcase their support. So, just bear that in mind. And if you're building or wanting to implement something new and cutting edge, perhaps an amazing high-tech visitor experience, then getting stimulation on board to support this, it shouldn't be too hard. But they probably also want to be assured that they'll be able to engage with it before anyone else. So make sure that's sort of part of the deal, that nice transactional offer as well. Stimulation too, and I'm speaking here from personal experience, have been known to part with their money on an absolute whim because a campaign is just too clever to ignore. So you put out something that is just a clever campaign that's quirky in some way, then they'll give to you as a well done for a great campaign. It's not about the cause that you're collecting for, or whatever it is you're trying to collect for. It is that you've done a good job and it's made them take notice, and they'll think, this is that tick to you, well done you deserve my money. And likewise, if they engage with you as an audience member, a visitor to your organization, or and you really impress them, they're prone to also giving you the kind of well done donation too. Well done you, here's some money. So some examples for you for stimulation. This ask from our friends at Rambit, a contemporary dance company in London, really leans into the fact that stimulation are risk takers, doing new and edgy things, and that this is what you're supporting if you give to them. By making a donation to Rambit, you're helping to create awe-inspiring, relevant and bold dance that encourages and motivates people to speak up, be brave and try new things, bringing the most radical ideas to the stage and beyond. So, great use of sort of what we would, say those buzzwords, stimulation buzzwords there. So in summary, how do you need to be asking stimulation for money? Well, firstly, we need to select the right things for their support. Experiments or brave new ideas are perfect. We need to show, maybe even surprise them by being a bit cool ourselves and telling them how cool they'll be in association with us. Along these same lines, if they are supporting you because they think you're cool, because they think you are cool, they'll want to tell others that they're your supporter. So, that brand alignment sort of thing. So, what things are you building into your initiatives to enable them to do this? And also, you want to be able to create urgency with this segment. FOMO, the FOMO moment, to act now or miss out. They also like something back for their gift, those transactional things, something that's unique, is sort of cutting edge, new, different, first, only for them, those types of things. So the last segment that we're going to look at today, just checking the time and have another mouthful of water. Affirmation. And just as they're looking for development from the arts and culture that they engage with generally, the museums they go to and the plays they see, this is also a key driver behind why they join. Affirmation join because they aspire to be better, and they think that alignment with the right places rubs off on them in this way. They want to do the right thing. There are also price conscious segments. So membership's a way for them to maximize benefit. So get those discounts, those multiple entries, that sort of thing. That's kind of important to them in this space. And affirmation too lack the confidence of some of our other segments. So curated membership programs, which offer them comfort and safety, less chance of getting things wrong, are really great for this segment too. And ultimately, self-development's important to them. They're definitely looking to extend themselves. So many of the sort of learning opportunities that memberships can and do offer, that's perfect. These are perfect as hooks for this segment. And here's an example of an affirmation pitched membership offer from English Heritage. Members do more, it leads. And funnily enough, that's almost an affirmation mantra that we use. We talk about do more culture is what affirmations say to themselves. They want to do more. It offers amazing value for money, hundreds of historic places to see. You'd actually struggle to use it enough in a year. There's so much to do. And it also taps into affirmation's desire to do the right thing, with helping this good cause, keeping history alive. You're keeping history alive for future generations. This one is more of a subscription offer for affirmation from Auckland Theatre Company, giving affirmation some nicely packaged options so they don't feel like they're going to get it wrong by choosing the wrong thing. And of course, there's also the opportunity to maximize value. And this, is highlighted, save 25% or save 35% there. And, if you really love the company, you can sign up for the whole thing. And again, affirmation want to do the right thing. So this would definitely hook a few in. And I really like this one for affirmation from LACMA, from the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. It's a dedicated membership for young professionals that curates a group of activities, not only at LACMA, but across the larger LA art scene. And this is a way for affirmation to develop, improve themselves, and do so in a structured way, led by others. They're not going to get it wrong. One of the things I really like about this is the membership is titled Avant-Garde, but actually when you look at the offer, there's nothing very avant-garde at all about this membership. It's pretty safe and actually quite a conservative offer. But a membership of this name would be a kind of badge of pride for affirmation. That would make them feel good. And finally, just looking at why affirmation gives. So while they're not the most prolific givers in the market, you can still appeal to their social conscience and the aspirations they have for themselves to be better, which in part is about being aligned with the right places. And this gives affirmation, this affirmation aligned ask, you'll love this one, from the High Desert Museum in Oregon. We work with some great places. It gets right at affirmation with giving feels good, really pulling out why donating is different at this museum. Unforgettable learning experiences that are not available anywhere else. It's also tax deductible, a nice reminder for a spend conscious segment. So those sorts of things, it's important for affirmation to know that they're getting good value. And also, and I think we have talked about this a lot, the detail is really important for them as well. So to finish, some pointers on how to ask affirmation for money. Remember, they are actively striving to become better. They want to grow, learn, and develop. They also want to be sure that the things they align themselves with are the right choices. So reassurance in your asks that you are the right choice and that they're doing a good thing is important. And finally, and I was just sort of mentioning this with the slide before, making it easy and self-explanatory for affirmation to give. We haven't focused much on this today with the things that we've been talking about, but those that know the segments will be aware that affirmation need all the information, there's all the detail to act. So don't leave anything in the process to chance. Tell them everything they need to know, lay it out for them, you know, and make that donation process a really smooth one. We've got a bit of time today to do some culture segment work, and we can move on to that in a moment, but it also might be a nice opportunity now to have some questions or some comments even. It doesn't have to be questions, it may just be reflections as well on what this is sort of raising for you or bringing up. I don't know if there's been anything interesting or pressing in the chat, Stephen.
Thanks, Joe. That's so stimulating, so incredible. A veritable tidal wave of information and knowledge. Well done. I guess, you know, finding relevance in our sort of markets, our local sector is a key interest. Often we're sort of given examples from, you know, the UK and the US. I'm wondering, you know, can you point to any differences in our local Australian kind of market or sector, or are these, you know, is the sort of market segmentation pretty universal in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, this is the great thing about culture segments is universal. We see a slight, I mean, I've showed you the sector profile, but that's all Australian, the actual models that I've shown you, that's all Australian data. So the profile was of the Australian culture market, and what we see in Australia and New Zealand is we actually have higher proportions of expression than the UK market, but the segment clusters still you know, segmentation, the framework is universal. So yes, you do see slight variations in the market's profile, but not a huge amount either. All of the markets that we work with, those top four dominate, except, Scandinavia does seem, for whatever reason, I don't know enough about Scandinavian market as to why, but they have a much higher proportion of release than we see in the Australian New Zealand markets. But absolutely, the framework itself and the clusters are universal across kind of cultural engagement, regardless of where you are.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you for that. I mean, another question, I guess, is how you see the segments working. You know, do they combine? I mean, are the segments mutually exclusive, or do they work independently of independently of each other? In other words, is it sort of worth, you know, combining messages or trying to sort of, you know, articulate a number of messages and reach out to a number of segments in the same sort of messaging?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, and it can be either. It can be either. You know, it really depends on what you as an organisation are trying to achieve, and perhaps what the thing is that you are trying to, you know, the offer that you, as I say, if it was something you're like, look, we need to fundraise for this, you know, whiz bang new whatever it is. It's like, well, it's so stimulation. Let's just go hard on making this a stimulation campaign and going for them first. So you might have a thing that naturally aligns with one of the segments. What we also just often say is, well, you know, there's no problem, like the Barbican did there, of having one membership program and just positioning it in three slightly different ways. They were not trying to change the offer, and those were very simple approaches, just a different graphic, you know, one bold statement and a follow-up sort of hook line to specifically target three different types of segments with the same offer. What we often say with our clients as well, you know, expression is, you know, they dominate the market, and, you know, again, they're the segment I desire to be more like. They're so fabulous. So often leading starting and leading with those expression approaches. You can't really go wrong if you do nothing else, if you lead with an expression approach, because there are a lot of them out there and they're most likely to give. So why not make your approach an expression one? And if you're going to if you want to throw in a few things that are a bit of extra comfort, a bit of extra support and information that might help affirmation as well, then you can add that to kind of a primarily driven expression approach that just has that a little bit of extra detail and comfort to sort of help affirmation along the way. Essence are, they're in my screen just went to state, essence are an amazingly important segment, because they are so culturally active. And as I said, they do tend to be high value givers. But, do be careful with your your essence only approaches to everything, because they like exclusivity and they're already in the know, so they don't need information. So often those essence approaches aren't going to appeal to the other segments or feel too exclusive and daunting for other segments. So, but there's no reason why, EDMs can't send out a few different types. And we've had clients that have had great success with simply changing the tagline, almost like the Barbican example, simply changing, not the tagline, the subject line in an EDM, and seen real success by doing nothing else to the actual message, but just having, three or four, having an essence, an expression, a stimulation, an affirmation, subject line to a message, and sending that out.
I'm interested, Jo, in which segments are aware of the segments they're in. I'm an expression, but being described as in the majority is something I don't really want to be. So I'm going to migrate into another segment, I think.
Oh, don't. Expression is the segment, as I say. We all aspire to be more like you. Don't worry.
Yeah, but I don't like being in a club that would have me as a member. I think that's the line, something like that. Look, I'm going to call for more questions through the chat function.
Great.
Look, if people don't have any more questions, I'm really happy to wrap up, Jo.
Yeah, I don't know if people want to do we did design a little activity if we do want to go into the breakout groups and have a chat together about something that you might be working on and thinking about how you might optimize this for one of the segments. But obviously this is up to the participants, and if they want to stay and do this with us for sort of 10 minutes or so, and it might be, obviously it's up to the participants and yourself.
That's fabulous, Jo. I noticed in your chat you've shared the example of Linden New Art. I'm a Linden contemporary, a donor down at Linden New Art. So again, well done. Your culture segments have successfully enticed me to become a donor down at Linden New Art. So whatever you're doing with them, you're doing very well, and it's all going in the right direction. So I think that's a really great example of a really great local example where this methodology has been employed.
Oh, great. That's really great, Stephen. As I sort of started by saying at the beginning, it's not used as well as it could be in this part of the world. We have lots of culture segment examples, but not necessarily good Australian and New Zealand ones in the giving and the fundraising and membership space, because it's more in other areas of these organisations. So yeah, but just wanted to share some, and I'm just going through and picking out a few more. West Australian Opera is another organisation that use culture segments really well. And the case study, but it's not necessarily, it's more about the developing the offer and their marketing campaign around it rather than around their giving campaigns. But I'll see if there's a few more here I can share, so at least people have some more examples of closer to home examples.
That's fantastic, Joe. And look, we will ensure that all those local examples get sent out once we send out this recording.
Great.
But on that note, Joe, I'd like to, thank you so much for sharing what is a really fascinating area.
No problem.
Really incredible to get this information, and to get it in such a concise and coherent fashion is really terrific.
Oh, good. I'm glad you found it helpful. It's a real whistle stop. So hopefully, for some people, this is sort of building on knowledge they already have.
That's right.
But for others, it might be a bit overwhelming if this is their first sort of introduction to culture segments and so forth. But, hopefully there is still something for everyone there.
Absolutely.
I don't know how. Do you want to bring people back and we just do a wrap up? Is that helpful? It's sort of, I don't know what you're thinking in terms of time is.
Look, I think we're ahead of time, Joe, but I don't think that's a big problem. Everyone's super busy, and I think most people are back from their breakout rooms anyway.
Oh, okay.
So I'm really happy just to wrap up and to
great.
Say really well done, so stimulating, so informative, and we will make sure. And look, I'm sure you'll get some follow-up contact from this constituent group as well to do a bit of a deeper dive.
Great. That's wonderful.
So thank you so much. Yes, go on.
I was just going to say, in terms of from here, for those that have come back to sort of log out, if you like, then there's more information on our site. I've put some links in the chat there, as I was just sharing with Steve. Use this as a framework to inform your decision making. But obviously, if you're wanting to get in touch as well, that's an opportunity to work with us, to segment your audience, your market. And we also have a culture segment tag tool that some of you will be aware of, which is, it gives you the ability to be able to tag, use that sort of power of culture segments by tagging segments to your database. So, if this is something that you think you are interested in, then, do get in touch. But don't be a stranger either. If we're not already linked on LinkedIn, then find me there or send me an email.
Terrific, Joe. Incredible work.
Thank you.
Keep it up. Keep fighting the good fight. It's really valuable to our sector. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. And to all our participants, as I said, keep an eye out for the next lot of knowledge series next year. And safe holiday period for everyone as we go into a little bit of a hiatus over the Christmas period. But see you all again soon.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.